Hello, my name is Daniel Yuck. Thank you for joining today. I appreciate you, your time, and your support. In this video, I want to take a moment and I want to share with you how I go about creating heavier line weights. Now, this is going to be done with the approach of not having the needle for the line weight that we are needing to accomplish. So with that being said, if you have any questions at all, I encourage you to please drop a comment down below. I'll do my absolute best to assist in the best possible direction. If you find this video helpful, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel, as I would greatly appreciate your support. With that being said, let's just get right on into this. Taking a look at these lines right here, so I'm going to be using these lines to demonstrate and get my points across. You can see that these are pretty heavy. I would say these are probably around maybe an 18 round shader or even a little bit above that. However, the issue is I only have access to a 9 round shader. So for example, let's say a 9 round shader, even an 11, whatever the case may be, this is all that we have access to. We're gonna have to use what we have, and this is highly probable that we would, enter these predicaments here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my points across using this 9 round shader right here. However, we have to remember that the lines require that of maybe more of like an 18 round shader. So they are double in line weight size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a good stretch on the skin, and this method is pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to kind of sculpt the line in there by building it up from one point to the other. And what that means is right here, as you can see, so I'm going to identify my A point, which is right here, and then I'm just gonna slowly, and I'm running at 5 volts just because I want to be able to move slower, and you can see how I'm staying right up against the edge of the leaf here, like so. And then I'm going to taper out just like that. Now you can see that I followed it from this point right here, and then I created a line the same size as the 9 round shader all the way down to the end. I'm going to essentially repeat that process with this side right here. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and dab. I'm going to go back for some more ointment. Wipe away. And if I pay attention closely, in the middle it's slightly faint. So what I can do is I can bring this round shader in the middle and just create one last line right down the middle. I don't have to go in there and kind of pack. I could go ahead and do a little bit of this if I needed to, but for the way that this specific line was applied, running one single line down the middle should be more than enough. I'm going to go ahead and apply a generous amount of ointment, and then I'm going to wipe away, and there we go. We can see now we have a line thickness that resembles that of like maybe anywhere from an 18 to 24 round shader. However, it was applied with a 9 round shader only. Let's repeat this again. So I'm going to go ahead and use these two lines right here. So you can see this line in the middle is kind of more on the complex end, and the reason why I say this is because if we pay attention, it starts off with a heavier line weight and goes to a smaller line weight. Luckily, the smallest area fits that of a 9 round shader, so we don't need to fluctuate in needle size. I don't need to change out my needle. What I'm going to do is just pay attention to the changes of the line weight. So I'm going to again start with one side, which is typically the left side for me, as you can see. And then I'm going to bring this A point down to this B point as cleanly as I possibly can. There we go. And then it's going to taper into here just like so. I'm going to dab. Bring this back this way. And then I'm going to bring it just back up right down the middle to kind of fill everything in. Very lightly this way. And that's that. So from here, if I dab away, and you can see if I get a generous amount of ointment, wipe away completely, you're going to see that we do have a pretty good level of saturation going all the way around. That's the last spot right there. And we also get that line weight fluctuation from the heavier line weight down to the thinner point. That right there is very, very important. I wouldn't want it to be all the same, especially if the stencil didn't read that way. That adds interest and contributes to the wow factor at the end when we have the line weights fluctuating tastefully like so. Now, one last time here, and this concept can be done with any size needle. I can use an 11 round liner, a 7 round liner, it doesn't matter. However, I feel that I want to get close to the ballpark of the line weight, and then I can kind of work from there, because if I was using a 7 round liner, it would just require more time to fill in, and it would also leave more room for patchiness. So I prefer to go with the round shader for this specific instance. Now, from here, you can see that I'm going to start on the right side simply because that's closer to this side this way. And I want to kind of stay uniform, so I'm going to do the same thing by starting on this side and making it from A to B as cleanly as I can. There we go. Same thing with this area over here. So I'm being very intentional with the depth, I'm being very intentional with the speed, very intentional with my angle. There we go. I'm going to dab away, and then from here I'm going to go back for some more ink. I'm going to go down the middle. And just lightly, very, very surface level over here to kind of just pack in what I wasn't too happy with. And this last area is not nearly like lining, or this last phase right here, I'm just using the very, very tip of the needle just to slightly deposit and push a little bit more ink into the surface of the skin there, which would provide me with a little more saturation and definition. I can see the line more prominently. So now you can see that we have this entire section that looks like it was done with an 18 round shader, but it was applied with the 9 round shader, which is half the needle size. That right there is exactly how I would go about building up all of these areas around the rest of this design here, or let alone any thick line that I don't have the actual line weight size for it. I prefer to sculpt up as I can take my time and then really get in there, and when we do it correctly, it should appear at the end that it's just one really thick uniform line. That's how we know we're doing it correct, and this is the approach that I'm going to take. As I've mentioned, it's very straightforward, it's very I guess self-explanatory really in a nutshell. However, the only thing is when we drop into the technicalities, like being able again to align your hand speed to your voltage, your needle depth, let alone being able to stay very consistent when applying both of the boundaries. We can't be wobbling. I mean, there is more room for forgiveness. However, if we wobble, we're still going to be able to see it on the final read. You want clean consistency throughout the entire width of the line, which I feel is what I accomplished here. That'll be it for this video. Should you have any questions at all, I encourage you to please drop a comment down below. Rest assured, I'll do my absolute best to assist in the best possible direction. If you found this video helpful, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel, as I would greatly appreciate your support. With that being said, I thank you for your time and I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great day.